Concrete Gems Crochet, and today I want to show you this. Now, I don't know if you remember this lovely motif that I used before. I've used it a couple of times, but now I have turned it into a poinsettia, and more specifically a poinsettia stocking. Isn't it cute? I love it. So this stocking is made out of 12 of these motifs, and we are going to make them now. So for this stocking I used Pebble Haze by what's it by? Yarn Smiths from Wool Warehouse. But I don't have any more of that left, so I've gone into my stash and I am going to use some Yarn Smiths Create Aran. That's the red as well, that's also Yarn Smiths Create Aran. And then I'm going to use this really bright green Caron Simply Soft for the green part of the stocking, and we're going to see how we get on. Now it's pretty if I can talk. It's a pretty straightforward design. You just need to make 12 squares, and it's literally the assembly which is the bit that's slightly confusing. But I'll show you how to make a square, and obviously you've got a cuff to add on the end and a hanger, or you can add a ready-made hanger if you want. It's up to you. Gauge isn't massively essential for this because it doesn't really matter what size your stocking is. Just use worsted weight yarn with a 5mm hook and you'll get something similar enough to mine without needing to worry. Obviously, if you want to change the size, feel free to play around and see how you get on. See what your square looks like. One of my flower motifs measures 4.5 inches across both ways, so that would be your kind of gauge basically. And the whole stocking, if you make yours the same size as me, your stocking will end up 20 inches long by 6.5 inches wide. And that's all you'll need really, just your 5mm hook, some worsted weight yarn. I've given you some options in the description of different alternatives for yarn, but as I said, it's a great stash buster, especially for the red and the white colour. You don't need so much of that, so it's quite good to use your stash. So let's get started, shall we? We are going to start with our white. I'm using US terms throughout, so make sure you're familiar with the terms. And we're going to start with a magic ring. So I've just crossed my yarn over like that, and now I'm going to insert my hook into the ring. So if you see, this is the tail end is underneath and the ball end's on top. Insert my hook into the ring, grab the yarn through, and then chain one to secure it. Okay, we're going to start with a stacked double crochet. If you don't like the stacked double crochet, feel free to use a chain 3. But we insert our hook into the ring, grab the yarn and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, so that's a single crochet. Then we're going to insert the side of our the hook into the side of our stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2, and that is a stacked double crochet. Okay, and we're going to do 11 double crochets into our ring. Okay, so just normal double crochet stitches. So we yarn over, insert into the ring, grab the yarn around and pull it back, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. As I said, this is a nice quick pattern. It's only got 3 rounds per square, so super speedy to get through it. I'm just doing these quite quick so that it's not too boring for you. How many have we got now? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. There we go. So then we're going to pull this end to tighten our ring. Like so. And then we're going to slip stitch into our first stitch to join. Oops, I've got an extra loop somewhere. We're done here. There we go, slip stitch into the first stitch to join, like so. So that is the centre of our square. And we're going to fasten that off now. If I can find that. Oh, sorry about that, but that was loud. There we go. That a chop. Fasten off. And you can weave that in as well at this point, or you can leave it till the end, depending how you feel. So now we'll move on to the red of the poinsettia flower. This is round 2 if you're following along with the pattern. And we're going to join in the back loop of the stitch, okay? So if you can see here, it's hard to see with the white, but you've got the front loop there and the back loop, oops, there. So we're just going into the back loop like so. Lay the yarn over the top and pull it through. And I like to do a chain 1 just to secure it. And then we're going to do a stacked treble in the back loop. We're going to be working all the way in the back loop for this one. So a stacked treble is like the stacked double, but with an extra one on the top. So if you remember, we do our single crochet and we go into that side loop there with another single crochet. And we go again, just exactly the same into that side loop, just stacking single crochets one on top of the other like that. And that is our stacked treble. Now we're going to do a 2 treble cluster in the back loop of the same stitch. Okay, so yarn over twice, insert into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then we yarn over twice again, insert into the same stitch again, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So now we've got 2 partly made trebles. Then we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops like so. And that is our first petal. And then we chain 2. And then we do a 3 treble cluster. So essentially this stacked treble and the 2 treble clusters together make a 3 treble cluster. So it's the same thing anyway. So we've got a chain 2, yarn over twice, insert into the back loop of the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then we'll get a bit more yarn, yarn over twice, insert into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now you've got 3 loops on your hook, yarn over twice, insert into the same stitch again, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now we've got 4 loops on our hook and we yarn over and pull through all of them, okay? And that is our next petal. Chain 2, and I'll show you one more time, and then we're going to do exactly the same all the way around, okay? So it's quite quick once you get into the flow of it. And that is my next treble, okay? Don't forget to do the chain 2 between each petal as well. Okay, so I have got to the end now, just doing the final chain 2. And then we're going to slip stitch into the top of that first stitch there to join. So it's not into the top of the stacked, it's into the top of the actual petal there to join on with a slip stitch. Okay, actually on the first round you could have joined with an invisible join, which I will show you later on, but I forgot that at that point. Okay, so that is our round 2 done. Now we're going to move on to round 3 with our very, very bright green colour, which is a slightly different yarn as well, but I'm sure it will all look fabulous. So we're going to join into any chain 2 space, so into one of these spaces here with our green. Oops, that's a good start, isn't it? Right, and I'm just going to chain 1 to join it on. It's going to look very, very strange, I think, this stocking, but there we go. So we're going to do a stacked double crochet to start with. So a single crochet to start, and then we go into that side as we have done before, like so. Okay, then we're going to do 2 more double crochets into that chain space, like so. Then we're going to do 3 double crochets in the next chain space. Like that. And then we're going to do our corner in the next space, okay? So the corner is trebles, so you do a treble, yarn over twice, like that. And then 2 more trebles. So 3 trebles. Then we chain 2. And then 3 more trebles, all into that same chain 2 space, okay? And then we're just going to repeat around. So we're going to do 3 double crochets into each of the next 2 chain spaces, into these 2, and then we do our corner with 3 trebles, 2 chain, 3 trebles, and then 3 double crochet, 3 double crochet, our corner, 2 sides double crochets, and our final corner here. And then we join with a slip stitch, or you can join with an invisible join, which I'll show you in a moment, to finish off. Okay, so you can see now that I have worked all the way around and it's now a square, so that's all good. And the flower petals of the poinsettia look like flower petals, so we're all good. So to do an invisible join, as I said I would show you, we cut our yarn and then we're going to just pull it through the loop like that with the hook, so no chain one or anything, just pull it through and then thread the yarn onto a needle. Okay, so you want to find your first stitch, which is not zooming in on, there we go. We'll find our first stitch and we're going to go around this stitch and we're basically going to replicate the stitch on top of it. So we're going to go under these 2 loops, okay? So not in the first stitch, around the second stitch, okay? And pull that until it's in the right place so that the stitches are lined up. And then we're going to go down the hole that the yarn was coming out of, okay? Just straight down and out the back. And pull that and pull it tight until that loop looks exactly like a stitch. And there, look, you can't even tell which is the correct stitch. And then all you need to do on the back is just weave in the end. And that is your square complete. So now we need to go ahead and make 11 more. And once you've done that, come back here and continue, and I will show you how to join it all together. Okay, so I have finished making all my squares, as you can see, and I've blocked them on my blocking board, making sure they're nice and square and flat. And now we are going to join them together. So we're going to join them together using a slip stitch seam through both the loops of the stitches. And we're going to put the seam onto the front of the work so that it makes a nice detail like this on the front. And as you can see, it's a really lovely detail to the stocking. Okay, you can seam them together in a different way if you prefer, but this is how I like to do it. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do the seaming now because it's slightly complicated. Not the actual seam, but the order of the seaming. So first I'm going to show you the seam and then I'll show you how to assemble them after that. Okay, so we're going to start with 2 squares and you want to have them, let's move that one out of the way, you want to have them right sides facing up because we're going to work the slip stitch. Oh dear, sorry, everything's collapsing, just grabbing the yarn. We're going to work the slip stitch seam using the same colour as the outside, so the green. And we're going to working through both loops, okay? So we need to just join first. So insert your hook into the chain 2, so the second of the chain 2, so through both loops like that, and also through this is how I like to do it. People do it differently, but I like to do it like this, through the 2 loops on the other square. Okay, and then you bring your yarn in like that and pull through that loop, pull through that loop. Okay, now that end's going to be loose for a while, but once we've finished we can weave it in, and we're going to carry on like that the whole way. The most important thing to remember is that you always go through the loops in the same order. So I always go through the one nearest me first, then through the one furthest away, and then you grab the yarn. Okay, pull through that loop, pull through that loop, pull through the loop on your hook. That's a bit baggy because it's our first one, but you want to try and make sure that they're all, that they are all of an even size. Goodness, couldn't think of that word. So I'll show you again. You go through that loop from front to back both times. Okay, so on both squares you're going from front to back. Then grab the yarn, pull it through, grab the yarn, pull it through, and through the other one. Okay, so again we go through the front to back on this square, then move to the other square, go front to back on the other square, and then finally find your yarn at the back, wrap the yarn around the hook, pull it through, and pull it through. And you can see already that the seam is starting to form on your work. Okay, and you should end up going through the same, like the corresponding loop of the squares each time on most of the seams. There is one that will be different that I will show you when we get to it, but for the moment you just keep going through the corresponding. So you can see that I'm on the last of the 3 here, and I'm also on the last of the 3 on that square. If you prefer, you can whip stitch the squares together, or you can use a different type of slip stitch seam if you've learnt a different type of one that you prefer, or you could crochet, do a single crochet seam across to join them, whichever you like, it's all good. Okay, so you just carry on that across for your first join, and then I'm going to show you how to join all the rest together, which is easy enough, but it needs to be done in a specific order so that we can make the stocking. Okay, so I've got to the end and I've just got the chain 2 left to do, so I'm going to do exactly the same going into the chain 2. It's just a bit fiddly to get to. There we go. And last pull through. Okay, and then you can fasten that one off, because that is all we're doing on the first one. Behind my scissors, they're under this pile of squares. Okay, so to assemble, we want to join 3 squares together like this, and then we want to join those ones together like that, so that they are in a tube, like so. Okay, so that is our first lot of 3, and we want to do 2 like that. So with another 3 you'll do exactly the same. I mean, these ones will join on this way, but you can just fold them differently. So 2 sets of 3 with tubes like that, so we can make those. Then you're going to do 2 pairs, a pair like that and a pair like that, and you should have 2 squares left at the end, and I will show you what to do with them once I have seamed all of these together. Okay, so how are we getting on? You should by now have 2 of these tubes which have got 3 squares in them. So you need 2 of those, like that. And then you should have 2 pairs like this. And then you'll have 2 individual squares left over, okay? So leave the 3 tubes, they're fine for the moment. We're going to work on these ones and the leftover ones. So take one of your pairs and fold it in half, like so. And then you're going to fold your final triangle, your final square into a triangle, like that. And you're going to join one on, let me get it the right way around, that way up. And then you're going to take the other one and fold it in half as well, the other way. And you're going to take your other final square, fold it into a triangle and join it on like that. Okay, so that is how you want to do your final seams. So you can continuously seam, you don't have to fasten off at the end, you can go all the way down from the bottom and then up the other side of this one, okay? Like that, and join those triangles on. So one side joins onto this square, and then if I can show you, the other side joins onto the other square that's on the back. So you'll end up with kind of like a tube, but with a smaller gap at one end than the other end. Okay, so go ahead and join those together, and then we will be in this position to join all of the tubes together into your stocking, which will look something like that. Okay, so now you can see how these pieces are joined together. We've not got much left now of the joining, so one little seam that you need to do is this one along the bottom, so that closes the hole at the bottom. And then we're going to join the different layers together. So this one is fairly straightforward. You use the exact same seam, slip stitch seam, and work your way around, working into the corresponding stitches on each piece. And then you've got these 2 pieces, which are also fairly straightforward to do, and you do in exactly the same way, working your slip stitch seam around in the corresponding stitches. Still working on the front exactly the same as we did for these seams, okay? Right. Once you have done those ones, you'll come to this seam in the middle. And as you can see, it doesn't really line up. So what we are going to do is we are going to be working around these stitches as well. So your seam will come up to here. So it will go from there up to there, okay? And what you need to do is you need to pin or use stitch markers to pop it evenly around so that you're working, you'll find that you'll work into some of the joins, the seam joins, and then you'll work these end 6 stitches, so 3 on this side and 3 on this side, into, well, around the post of these trebles here, okay? You can see that, so you work all the way around those to the end, and that will join that on like that, okay? And that is how the stocking is made. So we can go ahead and do that, and then we can move on to adding the cuff. So I'm going to do mine in a little while, just so I can start you off with the cuff. And to do the cuff, we are going to join into any stitch on the stocking. I actually like to join into the back by the seam so that you can't see my join. And we'll just move down a little bit. So grab your centre colour yarn. For me that was the white. And we will start. So we're going to make a join as you go cuff. And we're just going to pull the yarn through. As I said, to pull through any stitch you like, and just slip stitch to join. I'm still using the same hook. Feel free to go down a hook size if you think that will be better for you. And then we're going to not to do that. We're going to chain 21, okay? So this cuff is going to be doubled over. If you want your cuff to be deeper, then you'll need to chain more at this point. Okay, so just chain 21. Okay, so there is my 21 chains. Now remember that this is going to be doubled over, so the cuff will be folded. So it's going to be like that high when you finish. But you can always change it if you prefer your cuff to be taller. Okay, then we're going to single crochet into the second chain from the hook and each chain across all the way back down to the stocking. And this is a standard single crochet in the back loop cuff that we're going to be adding now. It just kind of finishes it off, I think. Okay. And if you like these granny squares, by the way, I've got a festival bag and a plant pot holder that use the same pattern. So do go check that out. Right, so you should have 20 single crochets when you get down to the bottom again. And then we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch on the, oh wait, hang on one second. And we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, sorry. Slip stitch into the next stitch and then turn. Okay, and then we're going to work single crochets in the back loops all the way back up those single crochets, okay? And this is going to just repeat itself now. So when you get to the top, sorry, it's quite hard to see with white yarn. When you get to the top, you're going to turn and chain one. Then you're going to single crochet in the back loops back down again. When you get to the bottom, you're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches on the main body of the stocking. And then you're going to turn and you're going to skip those 2 slip stitches and then work back up, single crochet in the back loops of the cuff all the way back to the top. And we just repeat that until we get all the way back around our stocking and back to the start. And then you're going to join the first and the last rows of the cuff together with a slip stitch join, which we know exactly how to do now. Okay, and I think that is nearly it. Once we've done the cuff, come back here and I'll show you how to make a hanger for it. And then we will be done. Exciting stuff. Before you go too much further, I just want to discuss a few little things. So when you're doing the cuff, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but I'm just going to highlight it here. The first one that you do, you slip stitch into one row end, as it were, or one stitch on the main body. But after that, you're slip stitching into 2 because you're coming back down and then going back up. So you're covering 2 rows, okay? So you want to slip stitch into 2. And then this is what it will look like when it is finished. Nice ribbing. Looks like I've crocheted some hair into it there, lovely. And then I've joined this one together, as you can see, and I've joined this seam together here. Now next is the tricky one, which I mentioned before, and I'm just going to show you what I'm doing as I go along. So you can see here the first 3 stitches of my seam, I've gone around the 3rd post, so it's essentially this post of the stitch here. So I've gone around that one, and I've now got to the next stitch, and it's slightly, I'll show you a bit better here. So I've gone around that post there, as you can see here, And now the next stitch, I'm going to go into the seam and then into the next stitch on the top one. And pull that through like that. What you want to do is you want to just keep checking that you're on target for getting to the halfway point, okay, and they're going to match up like that. So you can see that they do match up quite well already, but yeah, it's just getting those first 3 stitches in there like that works really well, and then working into that chain next. So I've worked into the seam and now I'm working into the chain. Okay, it's very slow going, but it's worth it when you get a beautiful stocking. And then we've got to the main stitches, okay, so then you can just do it as we were doing it before and continue across like that, and just make sure that when you get to the next seam that you're going to match up at the end. Otherwise you might want to add an extra one in there to make sure it does match up. And just carry on like that until you get round to the end, and then I will come back and I will show you how to do a hanger, which you can do you can buy a hanger, you can use some twine or ribbon, a leather hanger. There's lots of options, but I'm going to show you how to make a crochet hanger. And there it is, finished off. It is looking good now. And all we have left to add is a hanger in the top of the cuff. So we're going to use the white, and we are going to pop a slip knot on our hook. And we're going to chain 30. Obviously, if you want your hanger to be longer, you can chain longer. So now we're going to join it on. So with the 30 chains still on your hook, find the loop. So with your cuff already folded down where you want it, you want to find the loop of the stitch that's on the furthest edge and pop that through your hook. Then you're going to stick your hook through the chain and we're going to pull that back through. It's a bit tricky. Pull that through and then pull it through the loop on your hook to join, okay? And now that should just be fairly loosely through your stocking, and that will keep it nice and secure. And then what you can do is, well, you can just leave it like that and fasten off if you like, but you can make it a bit more secure by slip stitching into each stitch around. So just go into the next stitch and yarn over and pull through and just work all the way around. You'll have to kind of pull it out as you work. And you just keep on going around until you get to the end. Now when you get to the end, it's slightly tricky because you need to then work into the first stitch to join. So what you need to do is put your hook through the loop on the main stocking and then into that stitch, and then you pull through all of those loops like that to join it up, and then you can fasten off, and that is your stocking completed. So just weave in those last ends and you can then hang your stocking up ready for Father Christmas to come. Exciting stuff. I hope you've enjoyed making this stocking. I certainly have. And the first one I made as well, or that one. Love them both. If you have enjoyed it, then please do check out my other patterns. You'll find them on YouTube and also on my blog and Etsy and Ravelry. All the links are in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope to see you again soon for another tutorial with me, Concrete Gems Crochet. Bye for now.